Awesome humans in the world! Welcome back. So, we're going to talk about something, and I'm not trying to be unnecessarily controversial here, but I'm a discusser of things, and I like to bring in science and behavioral science and psychology. And so, I want to analyze with you, and I'm sure I'm going to miss a few things here and there with this. But as somebody who had started my own personal spiritual journey with the work of, let's say, Esther Hicks, for example, and I've since moved into the work of Neville Goddard, but also combining that with science, I find that sometimes we create drama just for the sake of creating drama, right? And we create differences just so we can create our own little, what's referred to as the bandwagon effect, right? And so in behavioral science, it's this tendency towards saying, oh, I'm going to jump on this thing because there's more people here, right? Or I'm going to do this because there's a wider group of people, so that must be more correct, right? And so we then base our decisions and our perceptions and interpretations on, hey, that looks more authoritative than this one, right? And a lot of that is about actually self-validation, meaning I don't have enough confidence in my own self to believe what I'm doing or how I'm doing what I'm doing. So I've got to create a difference in those people over there that are doing something that isn't what I'm doing, so then I feel more validated in doing what I'm doing. Okay, so again, that's what the bandwagon effect, the heart of that is really ultimately saying there's more authority in a much bigger crowd. And so therefore, what I'm going to do is I'm going to participate in that, right? And so again, that is obviously, we know that's not the case, but the fundamental core heartbeat behind that is insecurity, right? And so you don't need to go jump on something else because it's popular, right? But at the same time, the opposite is equally true. You don't need to attack something just because it's popular, okay? And so again, you have to really ask, why am I attacking something? Because at the core of why, because really fundamentally, if we're living by the golden rule or living by love, we shouldn't want to attack anything or anybody, right? And my argument for this, and what we're going to discuss right now, is that I am not differentiating because I think one's better than the other. I don't. But it's actually a good conversation to have, because I think that there's one major difference that separates the law of attraction versus, let's say, the law of belief. And I don't like the word versus, because you know what? If you're here and you use law of attraction, I think that's beautiful. Continue. And if it works for you, great. There's no judgment here at all whatsoever. And I mean that, right? But I also want to explain, and that's partially why I'm doing this, why I have chosen the law of belief, okay? So, the law of attraction is fundamentally, and I know, like I said, I'm going to miss stuff in this, and that's your job, is to come down and say, hey, there's another element here, right? And you don't have to be judgy about it. Just be like, hey, this is also another area which I think is important that shows the difference between the two. Difference doesn't mean wrong. So when you hear this word, I'm way too postmodern. So I don't believe in right or wrong in that regard. So, a major difference is that one is about attraction, right? One is that you are a magnetized being, maybe even divine, right? Depending on who you believe and who you follow within the law of attraction communities, right? But either way, you are magnetizing things based upon your moods and emotions and beliefs, right? Which that isn't exactly what the law of belief is about, but there's similarities in that, because again, there's also beliefs as well, which is why it's called the law of belief, right? But really at the core of obviously all of these as well is that there's an ancient origin to all of this, right? You can go back, and my study has taken me all the way back to ancient Sumeria and even into Egypt, right? So Egypt, they had the god which was referred to as Hika, who's going to show up in a book that I'm writing, right? And it's the god of magic, right? And so, but the way that they understood magic is the same way that we understand our law of belief or law of attraction, right? But again, the fundamental difference between the law of attraction and law of belief is that everything is within. Whereas someone like Esther Hicks, who talks about the vortex being this kind of like all or nothing space, right, where it has all of our desires and we just need to be in a state of receptivity, emotional receptivity, right? The law of belief is actually, you know what, I alter the pattern of my beliefs. Now I'm using Neville's language, right? I use and change and use any method that I want, because Neville actually does say that. You just need a method, he says, right? And you use pretty much any method that you can that gets you into the state of the wish fulfilled, okay? That means you are being that person. That's what the state of the wish fulfilled means. You are embodying the characteristics and the ideas and the actions and the perceptions and the reactions and the feelings of the person who is embodying what and who you want to become and what you want to have, right? Whereas law of attraction is more about, I've got to somehow stay in some sort of emotional awareness, right? And there's usually some sort of kind of hierarchy of emotions. And I think that for me, and this is my own personal view, I'm not attacking anybody, but for me, that's a little bit, that's a little bit problematic, because, you know, Neville, not just Neville, Joseph Murphy, other people in the law of belief community really don't argue against emotions. They're actually for them, because they actually, even Louise Hay, right? She says, you know, don't suppress emotions, which is also from the work of Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung and Jacques Lacan, right? William James, all of these very well-known, notable psychologists in our world, right, really argue against the idea of suppression. So you don't suppress any emotion. And I get that, you know, in the idea of hierarchy of emotions is that you're slowly working your way back up. But see, you don't want to do that. And the reason being is because you actually want to deal with these emotions. And the argument is that if you suppress them, or even if you know, even are trying to slowly work your way back up, right, that sometimes you're not necessarily dealing with the issues that brought them on in the first place. And so, right, and I get that this is more psychological, but that's my field. And so you want to be actually able to deal with the emotions, right? And all of these emotions and feelings have an origin, okay? So that means you have a memory, that means you have a belief that you've accepted that's very strong and powered by feelings, okay? Now, let me say this. Yes, you can manifest with having bad beliefs and bad views, and you can still manifest the life of your dreams. But why not do the extra work involved in getting better? Because the more work that you encounter, not work, but the more opportunities that you encounter, right, to actually get better at becoming better at being human, because you're God being human, right, that the better at manifesting you will become. So this will actually have a residual positive knock-on effect of, wow, I'm actually even better now, right? And so there's nothing wrong with actually going to things and doing things like therapy, right? I usually encourage people to do that on a regular basis. I go to therapy. And so, right, I would encourage people to actually take that on, right? And take that, the difference is that one is you are it. The other one is you've got to be in a receptive mode, right? The other one is I am it, right? So everything's inside, right? And so you're not, so all of the work, I don't like the work because it sounds like effort. And I'm against the idea of effort because this should all be natural, okay? So the state that you're trying to manifest should obviously be effortless and natural and without work, right? So, but what that does mean is that you have to be aware. You have to be aware and realize that awareness is a form of a superpower. Because the more aware of you are of your emotions and your feelings and your interpretations and your perceptions, then the better at this that you can become, and the more that you know how to become and embody the person from within in the imagination, right? So, I hope this was helpful to some people. I know that there's an ongoing conversation about this, but please hear what I'm saying here. To me, there isn't a wrong. If law of attraction works for you, please continue to do that. I'm not trying to convert you at all. That's not my job. I don't want to convert you, right? I'm okay with having difference of views and all of that kind of good stuff. So this is more of just a conversational piece to get people thinking about the differences, because in the world of the law of belief, you are embodying it. You're becoming it, right? And you already have it. You're not waiting for it. You don't have to keep emoting until it shows up. It's that you've given it to yourself within, right? And that's the greatest gift that you can really recognize, is that you are already the person that you want to be right now. So thank you for listening. Share your thoughts about the differences below and which field you work in, or if there's a third one that we didn't discuss that I should discuss later on. Throw it all in. But yeah, leave your thoughts below. Thank you so much. If you're looking for coaching, get in touch. But much love to you all. Be safe in the world.